Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
Recently, we heard in the news a Sunni Muslim who was arrested in connection to the killing of 4 men who turned out to be Shia Muslims. So this raised questions, Dr. Shabir, in the Muslim community about what was going on. The police have not really said that it's sectarian violence, right? But we know that there is all this sectarian violence in all other parts of the world. And there's a fear that, okay, is this coming to North America as well, in the sense that, is it getting to the extent of murder now? So, Dr. Shabir, I wonder what your thoughts are about this news.
Yeah. So regardless of the motive in this particular case, the incident has sparked a discussion among Muslims, both Sunnis and Shias, about sectarian violence. And it's good that we're part of that larger conversation.
Yeah, I guess Shia Muslims must be very fearful of what's going on as well, right? Just to know that 4 Shia men were killed and it could be sectarian violence must be very horrifying for them.
Yes, and I'm glad you identified that angle, because when we first heard the news about 4 Muslims being killed, we didn't know that they belonged to any particular sect of Islam. We just heard that Muslims are being killed one after another, and that caused alarm for me in particular. Like, are our Muslim brothers and sisters going to be gunned down, if they go to the mosque for the early morning prayer or anything like this? So naturally, when persons of that particular community know that all 4 were from their community, they're going to have the same kind of fear. Now, within the constraints of their community, they're thinking, is this against us? And we should feel that sensitivity to identify with the sufferings and the pain and the grief and anxiety of other people, whether it be Muslim or not. And in this case, being that they are Shiites, they are part of the larger faith that is called Islam, comprising of both Sunnis and Shias, even though with differing interpretations. So I believe it is important that we have this conversation and we try to get into the minds of our Muslim youth that they cannot take matters into their own hands like this. And this sort of sectarian violence is worse than having the sects in the first place. Like you might think, okay, having the sects is a bad thing because one interpretation must be right and the other one must be wrong. It's not necessarily so, but common people think it must be this or that, and one must be true, the other one must be false, because they're not accustomed to seeing things in a holistic manner. They see it from within one dimension. But in any case, we have to get across to our Muslim youth that even if you think that people being in another sect is a bad thing, killing them is worse than their choosing to be in another sect, because that's murder and that's clearly wrong.
Dr. Shabir, do you have advice about how to foster respect between Sunnis and Shiites, even though the differences may be irreconcilable?
Well, the differences I don't think are necessarily irreconcilable. I believe that if Sunni and Shia scholars seriously look carefully at our early history and the evolution of Islamic thought over the first couple of centuries, they may come to a common understanding of how that history unfolded and how things split up into 2 different factions like this. But as an intermediary step, I would recommend that on the one hand, for Sunnis first, I think we need to be more circumspect about the way in which we present the Sunni community and the Sunni history and our interpretation of our past. And at the same time, I can say the same thing for our Shi'i brothers and sisters. Like, don't be too, don't exaggerate. What God said to the people of the book, it would be a lesson for us as well. La taghlu fi dinikum. Do not exaggerate in your religion. Now, among
it seems like it was a very confusing time, right? Like after the Prophet passed away, it was a confusing time. People didn't really know what to do. And they were kind of, getting mixed up, trying to figure out who the leader should be. And there were disputes. So it wasn't, I wouldn't necessarily say people had bad intentions, but they were, they had interest, for example, right? They had interest in having a certain leader, for example, from a certain family or from a certain tribe or something like that. And they were trying to negotiate in this difficult situation, right? And things came about in a certain way.
Yes, yes. So we should accept that that's the way things unfolded, and the community split into two as a result of this. With other incidents adding fuel to fire,
Yeah.
and so we, as we are now, should try to reconcile rather than to divide further, and we should look for ways to reconcile, because certainly to hear about people being killed because of their faith, this is unacceptable, especially in our present times. And we hear about this kind of sectarian violence again and again. And I have to blame our fellow Sunnis. Maybe others can blame the people of their community, but I have to blame our fellow Sunnis, because often in the news we hear about a Sunni bombing some other community's mosque. Very often a Shi'i mosque, and we spoke about that before. We condemned such actions. Sometimes we hear that a Sunni bombs an Ahmadi mosque, whether in Pakistan or somewhere else. And sometimes, more recently, we heard about ISIS claiming responsibility for bombing a mosque in Afghanistan, and that's unthinkable. Like, what's going on? Just because of some political differences, they want to take out a particular individual. Whether they did it or not, they're claiming responsibility, and to claim responsibility for that, even if they didn't do it, is like, is somebody Muslim standing up and boasting that I raped a girl. That's haram. It's wrong. So why would you boast about that? And if you did it, it's actually even worse than boasting. So somehow our Muslim youth are led astray into thinking that they can just kill people in the name of God, and that God will be on their side. But the Quran clearly says, "Man qatala nafsan bighayri nafsin aw fasadin fil ard, فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا." If anyone kills another person without justification, which could be either because it's a capital crime that is being implemented, the punishment for which is being implemented by a Muslim state, or it is what is referred to in the Quran as highway robbery, or it's actually referred in the Quran as waging war against God and His Messenger, which Muslim scholars have interpreted to mean highway robbery, then this would justify it would be a capital offense. So either killing in retaliation for a murder, which is a state administered punishment, a capital punishment for murder, or a capital punishment for a highway robbery. So these are the two instances in the Quran where one might justifiably take another person's life. So other than this, it's like killing a whole people. That's how the Quran views it. So one cannot say, I'm following the Quran, and then at the same time going about killing people like this.
Dr. Shabir, is there anything that you think can be done in a mosque to ease the tensions between Sunnis and Shiites?
Yes, a mosque in Washington, D.C. actually took the initiative, or together with some Shi'i scholars, got together and held a conference in which some of the issues were discussed. And one of the imams here recommended that we do something similar here as well. Also, we're exploring the possibility of having a Quranic exhibition in which we'll show old manuscripts of the Quran and other such materials. And this will be put together jointly between Sunnis and Shias. But these are just some very rudimentary ideas. And obviously, there's much more that we should do and can do.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Shabir. It sounds very exciting.
You're welcome.
And long overdue.
Yes. Our videos reach people all over the world. We hope you will seize the opportunity to share in the reward from God. Please support us today.